Now when you're driving the Jaguar XE, that is when you get to feel the fun behind the car. We are already affirmed of its class in terms of the interiors, in terms of the technology that governs, in terms of everything about the car, and everything is really epic. Now when you're driving, that's when you see the 2-liter petrol's power. It produces 197 brake horsepower with 320 newton meters of torque. So you have plenty of torque to play around with when you're in city traffic, when you're trying to slingshot through city traffic. That really works, it really helps. And along with that, you get a very well weighted steering, which is really precise, and it's still easy to handle. As you can see, it's really responsive. And along with that, it gets a very pliant suspension, which is meant for ride comfort. It does soak in most of the bumps pretty easily, unless it's something really major. Then of course it does get unsettled, which is a problem with soft suspension cars, so to say. But the overall stability, the overall handling quality is absolutely superb in the Jaguar XE. You will not be left with anything to regret. We are approaching a bump as we speak, and as you could possibly see how smoothly the XE soaks in the bump, it really gives you a feeling of luxury. It really gives you a feeling of safety and security inside the car. On the highway, the 197 brake horsepower comes into action when you switch to dynamic mode and take control of the car with the pedal shifters. The power really surges through. You get to feel the power. You do get dollops of power. It's delivered in a very linear manner. There's no real lag. It's a petrol engine, so it does perform really up to the mark. And this is one of the most fun to drive luxury sedans that we've driven off late. It might be a tad expensive, and its fuel economy might not be as good as a number of other cars in this segment, but the fun to drive quotient, the excellent handling, and the great steering wheel, along with the overall dynamics of the car, makes this a really good car, a really superior car in comparison to its immediate competition. So when we come to the inside of the Jaguar XE, the first thing that we see is the infotainment screen. This is the same in-control software that Jaguar and Land Rover use for their cars. We've used the in-control interface before in the Land Rover Discovery Sport, and that one seemed to have more options on the screen. Over here we have the media playback, which is FM, AM, and multimedia playback at the same tile. Along with that, you get climate control, you get your phone controls with messages, and a satellite based navigation unit, and you get access to the 360-degree cameras, which we will come to in a bit, and your driving data, and the neat valet mode that we really liked in the in-control software. But that is about it. You don't get any other extra frills. But to be very fair, the number of features that are included in these 7 tiles actually covers every bit. It does not get third-party app support like we'd seen in the in-control app ecosystem in the Land Rover Discovery Sport previously. So we quickly switch to the front screen. The tile interface is a different experience when it comes to infotainment systems as opposed to the list-based infotainment interfaces that we keep on using. We go to the first tile, and this is where you get your FM, AM interface, which you can toggle your channels from here, and you go to source, and that is where you get to select which source is available to you. If you're connected via USB, your device will also show up on USB over here, and since we're connected via Bluetooth, we are paired via Bluetooth. This is the music interface. The album art would appear here along with the name of the track that will be playing, and if you have local music stored on your device, you can simply go to track list or go to browse and type out the name of the song on the screen, which is pretty easy, seeing that the interface is more or less responsive, but it is a little sluggish, so it might take a while for the song name to appear effectively on the list after you type it. That's the only qualm that we have over here, and that is actually there that's actually persistent across the entirety of the infotainment system. We come to climate control now, and you get to see the temperature outside, and you can control your airflow from here, and you can control your defoggers from here, and you can choose to switch it on or off depending on whichever you'd need. We go to climate settings and you get auto power, which sets the air conditioning power to low, medium or high as you would need, and you can also get to choose which whether to auto heat the rear view screen or not. So that is also a pretty useful, handy addition on the infotainment system, which we do miss on a few other luxury cars that we've been testing. Now we go to phone settings, and this is once again a tried and tested interface where you get the number keypad over here, you get your call list over here, contacts. Some of messages have failed to load, and the deal is that the messages will only appear once you give it permission, and after new messages start appearing once you've paired your device. So until you get that, you will not be able to access your old messages. As you can see, text messages not available right now. One key thing to note is that on every tile you do get the option to change device. So if you have multiple devices paired to the system at the same time, you can simply choose to change device and go to the list of paired devices and select another device if you have another one paired to the system. Moving on to the satellite based navigation unit, it does give a very familiar Google Maps type map view. You get estimated time of arrival, estimated duration of travel left to arrive at your destination. You get the next turn to take and the distance at which the next turn is. Along with that, you get the fairly easily understandable map layout. You can choose to zoom out to see a wider section of the map as well. You set your destination and everything from the checkered flag icon, where you can choose to enter address, enter postcode, access your recent navigated locations, get points of interest, or you can also program a home location and just simply tap go home when you're traveling back home at night, and the navigation will automatically route you back to your own home. There's something called intersection here. You can enter intersections to navigate to, which is once again a pretty easy India oriented addition in the in-control system. You also get trips that you've taken recently, completed navigations on the trips section along with geo coordinates, and you also get phone numbers and closest town. So this is possibly one of the most comprehensive satellite based navigation units that we've seen. It includes every kind of quick access features that you might need in your own system, which is very useful. And once again, the map is very easy to use as well. It's pretty easy to understand. There's nothing complicated about it. You also get a tile view where you can choose to enter your destination. You get your map view, you get to access your favorite locations, and you can also choose to stop guidance if you've decided to terminate your journey midway. You get emergency services and information about where exactly you are, and the trip computer in terms of distance left to final destination, average speed, moving average speed, and maximum speed that you've traveled at. We've traveled at 74, and so yes, this is once again what makes this unit so comprehensive is the amount of information and support that you get from the navigation system. You get pretty much everything you need from the navigation: directions, time of travel, mileage, turnings, ease of usage, intuitiveness, everything. And this is what makes this navigation unit one of our most favorites. Going back to the home screen and switching to the second screen, you get access to a number of cameras. This is a panoramic camera view, and this is actually one of the most intuitive features of the Jaguar XE. It has cameras all around. So if you keep tapping on the camera button, you get the two front cameras, one which shows you what's there on the left front corner and what's there on the right front corner, which is brilliantly useful when you are stuck in tight traffic and you're trying to make a quick move around with bumper to bumper traffic conditions. This is of course the rear view camera, and this is the top view. which gives you an idea of how much space is there by the side of your car. We often fail to park efficiently when we are trying to parallel park, and we either leave too much space or we go too close to the boundary, and this is the one that makes the biggest amount of difference. And it is this that makes it very easy to navigate, very easy to park. And moving on from cameras, you get eco data, which shows impact on fuel. The AC is on right now in our car, so it consumes about 1.5 liters of petrol per hour. And you switch to driving style, and once you are driving, it gives you statistics based on how you're accelerating, how your engine is responding, and how you're braking, to give you an approximation of your driving style and give you a trip summary based on the kind of mileage you're getting, the kind of mileage you can get. For instance, once we go to advanced trip, we can see the best trip we've taken can allow us to travel 100 kilometers using 8.4 liters of fuel. So that'll be somewhere around 12 kilometers to a liter, which is the best that we've done till now, and we're getting a 92% rating on the driving style. It's pretty helpful in terms of figuring out a better way to drive in terms of getting more mileage. And this is also a pretty neat addition for mileage freaks who want to get the most out of the fuel that they use. But if you're an enthusiastic driver, you won't really be bothered with the mileage, but you might be bothered with the driving style, which gives you a pretty interesting idea of how you actually drive. The last feature that we proceed to is valet, which we've seen previously as well. Now the valet mode, what it does is to use a new PIN code so that you can lock your car before you give it on to the valet parking assistant. So you can simply add a new PIN and confirm the PIN, and once you're done with that, valet mode gets activated and all your services are locked. So the valet parking assistant cannot make misuse of your car's infotainment system, of your expensive car's infotainment system, and he can only use the climate control, and to be fair, he should be allowed that much leeway at least. And once you're back to the car, you can simply tap on valet, add the PIN code that you'd registered, and your infotainment system unlocks, and you get back the entirety of the settings that you'd received. So that's about it in terms of what is included in the infotainment system. You also get 8 physical buttons. You get to access settings from this one, you get to access parking sensors from this one, cameras from this one. You get to choose your input mode of multimedia from the mode button. You get directed to the multimedia display from the multimedia button. You get to access your phone here and navigation here, which completes a really easy to use, comprehensive infotainment system. But one thing to note is that it doesn't really look special. It doesn't really look like it's something out of the ordinary. It doesn't really look like it's really striking. So as a result, what happens is that what you might miss out in terms of aesthetics, you do get in terms of functionality, but at this budget you do expect something a little more special, something a little more sophisticated. This definitely gets the job done, but the overall layout looks a little too simplistic for my preference. For instance, the entire dash, once you get into closer inspection, you'll realize that the quality of material is really good and the overall finish is very nice and definitely up to Jaguar standards, but once again a little underwhelming in terms of the overall design. But in terms of functionality, this infotainment unit is right at the top with the very best. Now, apart from the infotainment system, you get a number of other buttons in the Jaguar XE to control a number of other things. First up is the air conditioning, the dual zone automatic climate control system. Instead of toggles, it includes buttons, large, nicely finished rubberized buttons which look nice, which offer very good tactile feedback, which are easy to use. And the best part that I like is that the air conditioning is not noisy and it can really chill the car very fast. In fact, after a point you do feel a little uncomfortably cold, The air conditioning vents over here are placed a little unconventionally. The entire dash is set a little on the lower side, which gives it a more sporty appeal, which really contributes a lot in terms of aesthetics. But what it does is that the air conditioning right beside the driver's hand is placed right in front of the driver's hand, where you would usually hold the steering wheel, right beside the paddle shifters. And in terms of the buttons and the air conditioning themselves, they work absolutely fine. One very tiny element which many people might not really put a lot of importance to is that the volume power knob over here, which has this rubberized dial and has the power button logo to the middle. In most of the cars, you'd see that the power button itself rotates, the logo itself rotates as you rotate the button, which does give it a little bit of a jarring effect in terms of aesthetics. And especially when you're paying so much money for a luxury car, you'd expect perfection. In the Jaguar XE, you do get perfection, and this button does not see the logo moving. It's a static button with a rotating side dial, which does contribute to the aesthetics. It's a really tiny element, but it does contribute in terms of the overall usage experience, in terms of how a user would feel inside. You also get a start stop button, engine button with here, which is indented, and it glows red as you would hit start. And once again, something that Jaguar is focused on in terms of aesthetics. Moving below the air conditioning, over here you get a wireless charging pad on the car, and it supports specific phones. Not all devices can charge wirelessly, only those devices that are compatible with the present wireless charging standards. Now, beyond the wireless charging pad, you get the handshake gear knob dial, which is very special, which is meant to feel special and more personal. It's meant to make you feel more connected to the car. It rises from the bottom and contributes in terms of aesthetics, and the way of usage is a little unconventional. You rotate the dial instead of operating a stick shift, but it does work nonetheless. It's pretty easy to operate. You just turn the dial to put it on drive and tap it and turn it to put it on sport. So all of that is fairly straightforward. There's nothing complicated about it. Beyond the gear knob, you get a number of buttons over here. What each of them mean is automatic start stop, and then you get the number of mode selections over here, which you can operate with these arrows, and each of these signify a specific mode. For instance, we are at eco mode right now. Tapping to the right will select the special winter mode for the car, which adapts the car to travel on snow, which controls the suspension and the traction control as well. And when you keep switching to the left, you get eco, which is meant for highest mileage, and then you get a normal mode, which is sort of a balance between performance and mileage, as we always see. And this is the dynamic mode, which is meant for enthusiastic driving. When you get on an empty stretch of road which you really want to try the car out, you want to use it to its fullest potential, this is the mode that you want to rely on. And that is about it in terms of the drive modes. You also get traction control over here, which you can operate from this button. And beyond that, you get two more buttons over here. One is for the ASPC, and you need to select a gear for full ASPC, and you switch it off, and then you get the parking gear knob, which you can just pull to enable the parking gear, and you push down to disable the parking gear. It's as simple as that. So that completes the central dash. Along with that, you get two pretty decently sized cup holders, which will hold almost every cup that is possibly there in this world. And you get a very nicely finished central column. You get very posh leather finish over here with the contrasting tone adding to the aesthetics, and the overall fit and finish is also very perfect, which does make you feel special, which does make you feel more luxurious, and it does outdo a number of its rivals in terms of the aesthetics and the overall appeal of the entire car. Now, the multi-information display at the center of the Jaguar XE's instrument cluster is pretty good looking. It gets chrome inlays on the speedo and the tacho. The tachometer itself gets a very sporty outlook. You can see the 7000 and 8000 markings demarcated in red, which once again signifies a sporty appeal. You get the standard array of alerts going off over there, and the multicolor information display over there shows a lot of information. For instance, you get gear information, a digital speedometer, an average mileage count, which can be controlled from the light lever. So you get instant economy, distance to empty, and driving statistics in terms of acceleration, engine and braking. And you also get the present date and the total number of kilometers driven, and trip meters. So you get for trip A, you get the average mileage and all the details on the MID. Along with that, you get the standard engine temperature and fuel gauge with the present mode of entertainment, outside temperature, and the present time and the status of the gear that you're on right now. So that completes the entire number of information, but there's more to it which you can access with the steering wheel. For instance, you get driving features, which shows you options for show warnings and gear shift paddles, and you can choose to see whether the gear shifters will work only in sport mode or they'd work in drive mode as well, the standard drive mode that is. You get a trip computer, you can choose auto trip metering and choose the units, and you can also choose the second trips as and when you would use them. Going to the instrument display, you get a language setting which is pretty self-explanatory, and a digital speedometer which you can choose the unit for, and you also get temperature units depending on where you're staying and which unit you're used to seeing. Going to vehicle setup, you get passenger airbags, alarm sensors, a reverse dip mirror which is more of an adaptive mirror to the side wings. So the two rear view mirrors adapt to the reverse parking gear, and you can program them manually. You can choose each of the mirrors and program them in terms of how much they would adapt or change when you switch to the reverse gear. You also get two-stage unlocking and a lock warning, along with all window open and close and wiper settings, and you also get drive away locking, which is automatic lock, and headlamp delay as well. So you get pretty much every setting that you would ideally or ever need to access in your car. So that brings us to an end in terms of the number of options you get on the MID, which is pretty much everything that was missing from the infotainment display, if any. Well, now you get it on the MID, and all of this makes the Jaguar XE a very intuitive car to use. It gives you all the features. Everything is very neatly arranged. It's not overwhelming in terms of the design, particularly the infotainment display, but this especially makes everything complete and makes the entire experience pretty wholesome. Now, the steering wheel in the Jaguar XE feels heavy, it feels sturdy, it feels well built, and of course with the Jaguar embellished at the center, it also evokes a lot of emotions and feelings. Now, with all of this, you get a sort of modular steering wheel. You get a separate horizontal spoke and a separate vertical spoke, and it does feel a little disjointed along these lines, but it's still alright. There's nothing really wrong with it. To the left, you get your controls for multimedia and the multi-information display to the center of the instrument cluster. You get a menu button which you can tap on to access all the driving features, the trip computer, and settings for the vehicle and instrument display, which you can close and go back to the main setting, which shows you the temperature and the amount of fuel remaining. Now, on the steering wheel, you get volume controls over here, and you get a mode to select the mode of the entertainment that you are presently on. You also get telephone controls, tapping on which takes you to the last access telephone setting on your central console, and you get previous track and next track buttons as well, which complete the number of buttons and functionalities on the left side of the steering wheel. To the right, you get cruise control buttons. You can select cruise control and set the speed and control cruise control from these buttons. right from the steering wheel. You can also set a speed limit over here and cancel cruise control and speed limit all from the steering wheel, which makes this a pretty decent multitasking hub. Along with that, you get a light switch to the left of the steering wheel right behind the paddle shifter, which you can also use to get displays on the MID in terms of average mileage and total mileage, and present speed and total kilometers driven, and a lot of other information as well, just by pressing the button on the light lever. So that brings up the number of controls that are there on the steering wheel and behind it. You also get paddle shifters over here, and the wiper controls are to the right. In what is a pretty interesting addition is the automatic steering wheel adjuster. It doesn't get a manual lever like a lot of other luxury offerings like BMW, etc. still tend to offer. You get an auto lever which is to the right of the steering wheel, which you can simply push down to take the steering wheel down, or push up, and you can also push it backward or frontward, so you get both tilt and telescopic adjustment. And the adjustment is, as you can see, it is fairly diverse. There is a good range to the adjustment of the steering wheel that you get with the Jaguar XE. Now, one of the best parts about this Jaguar XE is the way the memory seats are implemented. They are not the typical push down buttons that we see over time. These are simple push buttons, and with one touch you can easily assign your own seat's position, and you can also switch between 3 seat positions. So for instance, if I want a more upright position which I programmed on number 2, all I need to do is tap on number 2, and there I have it. But if I want my seat to be more reclined, the best part about this is that I get steering automatic adjustment as well. It adjusts automatically to my driving position, and if I'm a little shorter, then I can choose an upright driving position. The seat height adjustment is really good. You adjust the height from this button over here. You can push it down as much as you want, or you can pull it up. You can also toggle the height in 2 ways. You can push it up from the back and the front. You can recline, and you also get lumbar support as well. All of this is taken into account when the memory seats are programmed, and this makes it very easy to find your perfect driving position in the Jaguar XE. Now, one of the main things about the Jaguar XE is its interiors, the quality of the upholstery, the overall fit and finish, and the entire aesthetic appeal that it gives. It feels really sporty, it feels really modern, and it gets a dark black grey upholstery on the upper end of the dashboard, and a dark tan towards the bottom end, which also extends to the central pillar and the rear seats as well. It creates a very nice contrast. It strikes, and it really stands out among its competitors. And along with that, you get sporty air vents which look quite aggressive, which look really nice, so to say. You also get a triple deck front doors, where you get the front sill that runs all the way along the front edge and looks very sporty. It gives this lowered dash, which once again adds to the aggressive stance of the Jaguar. Along with that, you get a second ledge with the window controls and the third ledge with the seat controls. Everything falling within your hand's reach, everything being very ergonomic, and at the same time maintaining the appeal, maintaining the style, maintaining the design. There is also a very nice amount of perfection in the fit and finish. You can see how the speakers are finished. You can see the Jaguar badge over there. You can see how each and every element is molded into this car to feel so special. The seats themselves, they really hug you. You also get lumbar support control to your right, and everything is to the edge of perfection. The fabric itself is soft. It makes the car feel comfortable. The rear seat as well, it's pretty spacious, although third person seating might be a bit of a problem because of the extended pillar, but you do get an armrest, so 2 people can sit very comfortably. Legroom is adequate in the rear seat, but it's not extensive. It's not the best in class, but it's still very adequate. and all of these combined makes the car feel very special. You get touch lights here as well, and you get an auto extending and auto opening sunroof with the sunroof shutters. You get a sunglass holder over here, and of course the rest of the elements combine to make this cabin, to make these interiors feel really, really special.